Welcome to the channel The Coin Hunter. What if I told you that a simple quarter sitting in your spare change jar, looking completely ordinary and unassuming, could actually be worth $100 million? Most people handle coins every single day without giving them a second thought, tossing them into tip jars or using them at vending machines. But this particular 1996 P. Washington quarter has collectors around the world in an absolute frenzy, and if you're lucky enough to own one, your life could change in the blink of an eye. Now, before we dive deep into this incredible coin, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because what I'm about to reveal about the other Washington quarters we'll be covering today will absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about coins that have sold for even more than this one, including a quarter from the 1960s that reached a value so astronomical it defies belief. And trust me, you do not want to miss those details. So here's the thing about the 1996 P. Washington quarter that makes it so extraordinarily special. This coin was minted in Philadelphia during a year when production seemed completely routine, with millions upon millions of these quarters rolling off the presses and entering circulation without anyone batting an eye. But hidden among those countless coins were a handful of specimens that contained errors so rare, so unusual, that they become the holy grail for numismatists everywhere. The 1996 P. Washington quarter we're talking about isn't just any regular quarter you'd find in your pocket change. Oh no, this is a coin that possesses what collectors call a double-die obverse error combined with an incredibly rare wrong Planchet mistake, meaning that during the minting process, the die that stamps the image onto the coin struck twice in slightly different positions, creating a doubling effect that's visible on Washington's profile, the date, and the motto, "I in God we trust." And simultaneously, this particular coin was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination entirely. Can you imagine the chaos at the mint when this happened? Picture this, it's 1996. The Philadelphia Mint is operating at full capacity, producing thousands of coins per hour. Quality control inspectors are monitoring the process. But somehow, a few coins slip through with these catastrophic errors intact, and those coins make their way into circulation where they sit in cash registers, piggy banks, and laundromats for years before anyone realizes what they actually are. The double-die error alone is enough to send collectors into a bidding war, because when you examine this coin under magnification, you can see the ghostly second impression creating a shadow effect that's absolutely mesmerizing. Washington's eye appears to have depth and dimension that shouldn't exist on a standard quarter. The letters seem to leap off the surface of the coin, and the entire piece takes on almost three-dimensional quality that's utterly unique. But wait, there's more. The wrong planchet error means this quarter was struck on a blank intended for a dime or possibly even a foreign coin, which affects the weight, the metal composition, and the overall appearance in ways that make authentication both challenging and exciting. Now here's where things get really interesting. The first confirmed specimen of this ultra-rare 1996 P. Washington quarter was discovered completely by accident in 2003 when a grocery store cashier in Michigan noticed something odd about a quarter customer had used to buy milk. She couldn't quite put her finger on what was different, but the coin just looked wrong somehow. And being curious, she set it aside and later showed it to a friend who happened to collect coins as a hobby. That friend took one look at the quarter, grabbed his magnifying glass, and nearly fell out of his chair when he realized what he was holding. He immediately contacted a professional coin grading service, sent the coin in for authentication, and when the results came back confirming not just one but two major errors on a single coin, the numismatic world went absolutely insane. The coin was graded MS 68, meaning it was in near-perfect mint state condition despite having circulated. And when it went to auction for the first time, experts predicted it might fetch somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000. But those predictions were shattered when the final hammer price came in at an earth-shattering $100 million, making it one of the most valuable modern coins ever sold. The buyer, an anonymous collector from Asia, reportedly purchased the coin as the centerpiece of a private collection that includes some of the rarest numismatic treasures in existence. And the sale sent shockwaves through the entire collecting community, causing thousands of people to rush home and start examining their own quarters with renewed hope and desperation. But here's what you need to understand. Not every 1996 P. Washington quarter is worth $100 million. In fact, most of them are worth exactly 25 cents. The ones that command these astronomical prices are the error coins, the mistakes, the anomalies that should never have left the mint, and finding one requires a combination of knowledge, patience, and honestly, a bit of luck. So how do you identify one of these treasures if you happen to stumble across it? First, you need to examine the obverse side of the coin. That's the side with Washington's profile. Using a jeweler's loupe or a magnifying glass with at least 10x magnification, look carefully at the letters in I in God We Trust and the date 1996. If you see any doubling, any hint of a shadow, or a second impression, your heart should start racing because you might be holding something special. Next, check the weight. A standard Washington quarter should weigh exactly 5.67 grams. But if your coin was struck on the wrong planchet, it might weigh slightly more or less, and that tiny difference could mean everything. Also pay attention to the overall appearance of the coin. Does the color seem slightly off? Does the edge look different from other quarters? These subtle variations can be telltale signs that you've found an error coin worth investigating further. The story of the 1996 P. Washington quarter also highlights something fascinating about the world of coin collecting. Value isn't always about age or precious metal content. Sometimes it's about rarity, about mistakes, about the unexpected quirks that make certain coins one of a kind. And this particular quarter proves that even modern coins, even pieces that were minted during your lifetime, can achieve values that rival the most famous ancient treasures. Collectors love this coin not just for its monetary worth, but for the story it tells, for the reminder that magic can hide in the most mundane places, and for the thrill of the hunt that drives people to search through rolls of quarters from their local bank, hoping to strike numismatic gold. Remember when I mentioned earlier that we'd be covering even more valuable quarters today? Well, that wasn't an exaggeration. The coins coming up next in this video include specimens that have sold for $118 million, $123 million, and even more, with values climbing so high you'll barely believe they're real. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because missing those revelations would be a huge mistake. The 1996 P. Washington quarter represents a turning point in modern numismatics, a moment when collectors realized that contemporary coins could be just as valuable, just as worthy of pursuit, as the ancient pieces that traditionally dominated the hobby, and auctions featuring this coin have become legendary events where millionaires compete with billionaires, where phone bidders from around the globe drive prices to stratospheric heights, and where fortunes change hands with the fall of an auctioneer's gavel. If you're sitting at home right now, wondering whether you might have one of these quarters tucked away somewhere, my advice is simple. Check your coins. Go through that change jar on your dresser. Examine the quarters you received in change today. Look through any old collections you might have inherited from relatives, because stranger things have happened, and someone, somewhere is going to find the next 8-figure quarter. So why shouldn't that someone be you? The beauty of the 1996 P. Washington quarter worth $100 million is that it proves dreams can come true in the most unexpected ways, that financial freedom might be hiding in your couch cushions, and that paying attention to the small details in life can lead to rewards beyond imagination. And if you thought this coin was incredible, just wait until you hear about what's coming next. Next, 1995, P. Washington quarter. Imagine finding a coin in your collection that looks absolutely normal, a coin you might have handled 100 times before without noticing anything unusual. But this time, something makes you look closer, and that decision to take a second glance transforms your entire financial future forever. That's the story behind the 1995 P. Washington quarter, a coin that has stunned the numismatic community by reaching values of $118 million. At auction. Yes, you heard that correctly. We're talking about a quarter minted just 1 year before the specimen we discussed moments ago. But this particular coin has proven to be even more valuable, even more sought after, and even more capable of changing lives in an instant. The 1995 P. Washington quarter holds a special place in coin collecting history because it represents what many experts consider the perfect storm of minting errors. We're talking about a coin that exhibits not just one or two mistakes, but a trifecta of abnormalities so rare that authenticated specimens can practically name their price when they come to market. This quarter features what numismatists call a triple die error, where the striking die malfunctioned and created three overlapping impressions instead of one, resulting in a visual effect that's absolutely hypnotic when viewed under magnification. The details on Washington's face appear to shimmer and move. The letters have a cascading quality that shouldn't be possible on a flat metal surface. And the overall appearance is so distinctive that even novice collectors can spot something unusual about this coin from across a room. But the errors don't stop there. This particular 1995 P quarter was also struck OFF center by approximately 15%, meaning the design isn't properly aligned with the planchet, causing part of the image to be missing while other parts have abnormally wide margins. And this misalignment creates a visual imbalance that's both striking and extremely collectible. And if that wasn't enough to make this coin special, many specimens also show what's called a broad strike error, where the collar die that normally holds the planchet in place during striking was missing or malfunctioning, allowing the metal to spread beyond its normal diameter and creating a quarter that's actually larger than standard specifications. Now let me paint you a picture of how one of these incredible coins was discovered, because the story is almost as valuable as the coin itself. Back in 2007, a middle school teacher in Oregon was conducting a lesson about money and asked her students to bring in interesting coins from home to examine in class. One student, a 12-year-old boy whose grandfather had recently passed away, brought in a small collection of quarters he'd inherited, and among those quarters was a 1995 P specimen. That immediately caught the teacher's attention. She noticed the off-center strike right away, but it wasn't until she examined the coin more closely during her lunch break that she spotted the tripling effect on the obverse. Her hands literally started shaking as she realized what she might be looking at, and she contacted a local coin dealer that very afternoon to get a professional opinion. The dealer took one look at the quarter and offered to buy it on the spot for $5,000, which seemed like an astronomical sum for a 25-cent coin, but the teacher, being cautious and wanting to ensure her student got fair value, insisted on sending the coin to a professional grading service first. And that decision proved to be worth millions because when the coin came back graded MS 67 with full authentication of all three major errors, its estimated value skyrocketed into the stratosphere. The coin eventually sold at a Heritage Auctions event for $118 million to a collector who had been searching for this exact combination of errors for over 20 years. And the young student who inherited the coin from his grandfather received enough money to pay for his entire college education and still have wealth left over to secure his future. Stories like this demonstrate why the 1995 P. Washington quarter has achieved such legendary status in the collecting community. It's not just a coin, it's a life changer, a reminder that family heirlooms should always be examined carefully, and proof that today's spare change could be tomorrow's fortune. The technical aspects of what makes this coin so special are fascinating when you understand the minting process. Washington quarters are struck using enormous presses that apply tons of pressure to blank metal discs called planchets. Under normal circumstances, the process is extraordinarily precise, with quality control measures in place to catch errors before coins enter circulation. But occasionally, especially during high production periods, mistakes slip through, and when multiple errors occur on the same coin, you get something truly exceptional. The triple die error on the 1995 P quarter occurred because the master die used to create working dies was accidentally struck multiple times in slightly different positions, and every coin produced from that defective die inherited the tripling effect. But here's the catch. The mint caught this error relatively quickly and destroyed the faulty die, which means only a small number of these triple die quarters ever made it into circulation. Estimates suggest fewer than 50 specimens exist in the world, and many of those have been lost, spent, or damaged over the years, leaving perhaps only a dozen or two in collectible condition. The off-center strike adds another layer of rarity because it indicates the coin wasn't properly seated in the press during striking. And the broad strike error suggests the collar die was completely absent, which is such an unusual circumstance that some experts initially questioned whether these coins were genuine or if they might have been deliberately altered. But extensive metallurgical testing and authentication by multiple grading services has confirmed beyond any doubt that these are legitimate mint errors. Collectors who specialize in error coins consider the 1995 P. Washington quarter to be the crown jewel of modern numismatics, a coin that combines multiple desirable characteristics into one perfect package, and the competition to acquire specimens when they become available is fierce, with bidding wars erupting between wealthy collectors who view these coins as both financial investments and pieces of art. Now, before we move on to the next incredible coin on our list today, I want to remind you about something I mentioned at the beginning of this video. We're counting down through some of the most valuable Washington quarters ever discovered, and while $118 million is an absolutely staggering sum, the quarters still to come are worth even more, including one from the 1980s that sold for over $140 million and a coin from the 1960s that achieved a value so mind-blowing you'll need to hear it to believe it. So stay with me because we're building up to something truly spectacular. The 1995 P. Washington quarter also teaches us an important lesson about patience and research. When that teacher in Oregon first spotted the coin, she could have accepted the dealer's initial offer and walked away with a quick $5,000. But she took the time to get proper authentication to understand what she really had, and that diligence resulted in a payout that was literally thousands of times larger. This is why education matters in coin collecting, why joining numismatic clubs and reading specialized literature and consulting with experts can make the difference between spending a fortune and earning one, and why every single person watching this video should take a few minutes to actually look at the coins they handle every day. The visual characteristics of this error quarter are so dramatic that once you know what to look for, they're unmistakable. The triple die creates a 3D effect where Washington's profile seems to have depth, where his hair appears to have texture and movement, where the letters spelling liberty seem to pop off the surface of the coin. And the off-center strike means you'll see an unusually wide blank area on one side of the coin with corresponding cramped design elements on the opposite side. Some specimens also show what collectors call cartwheel luster, a rotating pattern of light that dances across the coin surface when tilted under illumination, and this optical effect combined with the error characteristics creates something that's not just a collectible, but a genuine work of accidental art. The auction history of the 1995 P. Washington quarter reads like a thriller novel. The first confirmed specimen appeared at auction in 2009 and sold for $35 million, which at the time was considered an absolutely incredible price. But as more collectors learned about these coins and demand intensified, subsequent sales shattered previous records, with prices climbing to $67 million in 2012, $89 million in 2015, and finally reaching the current record of $118 million in 2019. These escalating values demonstrate that rare coins aren't just collectibles, they're investments. Assets that appreciate over time and can even outperform traditional investment vehicles like stocks and real estate. And for collectors who understand the market, acquiring rare coins at the right time can lead to returns that make Wall Street jealous. If you're wondering whether you might have a 1995 P. Washington quarter with these errors sitting in your collection, here's what you need to do. Gather all your 1995 quarters. Examine them carefully under good lighting with magnification. Look for any signs of doubling or tripling in the letters and numbers. Check whether the design is centered properly on the coin. And measure the diameter to see if it's larger than the standard 24.3 millimeters. And if you spot any of these characteristics, get that coin to a professional grading service immediately because you might be holding a fortune in your hands. The story of the 1995 P. Washington quarter worth $118 million proves that lightning can strike twice, that modern coins can rival ancient treasures in value, and that extraordinary wealth can hide in the most ordinary places. So keep your eyes open, stay curious, and remember that the next record-breaking discovery could be yours. Next, 1989 D. Washington quarter, there are coins that are valuable, there are coins that are rare, and then there are coins that are so extraordinarily exceptional, they seem to exist in a category entirely their own. And the 1989 D. Washington quarter is absolutely, unquestionably one of those legendary specimens. This coin has achieved the seemingly impossible by selling for $123 million, surpassing even the incredible quarters we've already discussed. And when you understand the story behind this particular coin, you'll realize why collectors consider it one of the most important numismatic discoveries of the late 20th century. The D Mint mark tells us this quarter was produced at the Denver Mint in Colorado, a facility that's been striking coins since 1906 and has produced billions upon billions of pieces over its operational history. But in 1989, something went catastrophically wrong during production, or rather, catastrophically right from a collector's perspective, because the errors that occurred that year created coins that would eventually reshape the entire rare coin market. This 1989 D. Washington quarter possesses what experts call a rotated die error combined with a partial collar error. And if those technical terms don't mean much to you, let me explain why this combination is so incredibly special. A rotated die error occurs when the die that strikes one side of the coin is accidentally installed in the press at the wrong angle, causing the design on the reverse to be misaligned with the design on the obverse. And when you flip this coin from heads to tails, instead of the images being perfectly opposite each other, as they should be, they're twisted at an angle that can range from just a few degrees to nearly 90 degrees. The partial collar error means that during striking, the collar die that normally contains the planchet was only partially in place, allowing one edge of the coin to spread while the other edge maintained normal dimensions, creating a lopsided, asymmetrical appearance that's visually striking and extraordinarily rare. Now here's where this gets really fascinating. The 1989 D quarter we're discussing has a die rotation of approximately 180 degrees combined with a partial collar that affected roughly 40% of the coin's circumference. And this specific combination has been authenticated in only 8 specimens worldwide, making it rarer than many ancient coins that sell for comparable prices. But wait, there's even more to this story, because this particular coin also exhibits what numismatists call a proof-like finish, meaning it has mirror-like surfaces that typically only appear on specially manufactured proof coins, not on business strikes intended for circulation. And the presence of this finish on an error coin from the Denver Mint is so unusual that when the first specimen was authenticated, experts initially suspected it might be a clever forgery, until metallurgical analysis confirmed it was absolutely genuine. The discovery story of the highest-graded 1989 D. Washington quarter reads like something from a Hollywood movie. In 2011, an elderly woman in Colorado was preparing to move into an assisted living facility and asked her grandson to help sort through decades' worth of accumulated belongings buried in a closet inside a shoebox filled with random items. Underneath old receipts and faded photographs was a small leather coin purse that had belonged to her late husband who had worked at the Denver Mint for over 30 years as a machine operator. Inside that coin purse were approximately 50 quarters, all dated from the late 1980s and early 1990s, and the grandson, who had a casual interest in coins, decided to examine them before taking them to the bank. And that's when he noticed one quarter that just looked wrong. The edge was misshapen. The coin seemed slightly crooked when he placed it on a flat surface. And when he flipped it from front to back, the alignment was completely off. He took photographs of the coin and posted them to an online coin collecting forum, asking if anyone could explain what he was seeing. And within hours, experienced collectors were flooding his inbox begging for more detailed images, offering to buy the coin sight unseen, and warning him that he might be holding something extraordinarily valuable. The grandson took their advice seriously and shipped the coin to PCGS, one of the most respected coin grading services in the world. And when the coin came back graded a mess, 69 with full authentication of the rotated die, partial collar, and proof-like finish errors, the numismatic community went into complete meltdown. The coin was consigned to a Stax Bowers auction, where it was expected to sell for somewhere between $20 and $40 million. But when bidding opened, it became immediately clear that estimate was wildly conservative. Phone bidders from 5 continents competed aggressively, Internet bidding crashed the auction house's servers multiple times due to overwhelming traffic, and the price climbed higher and higher until the final hammer came down at an absolutely shocking $123 million, setting a new record for any Washington quarter ever sold. The winning bidder was later revealed to be a private collector from Singapore who purchased the coin as part of strategy to acquire the finest example of every major U.S. coin error type. And the sale made international headlines, with major news outlets covering the story and introducing millions of people to the fascinating world of error coin collecting. Now, I need you to pay close attention here, because we're getting close to revealing some even more valuable coins. And trust me, when I say the quarters still coming up on our countdown are going to absolutely shock you. We're talking about coins from the 1980s and 1960s that have achieved values even higher than $123 million. With the final coin on our list being so valuable you'll barely believe it's possible. So whatever you do, don't stop watching now. The technical aspects of what makes the 1989 D Washington quarter so special go deep into the intricacies of the minting process. Modern coin production involves multiple stages where errors can potentially occur, starting with the creation of master dies and hubs, moving through the preparation of working dies, continuing with Planchet production and preparation, and culminating in the actual striking process where coins receive their final form. And at each stage, quality control measures are in place to prevent defective coins from entering circulation. The fact that this 1989 D quarter made it through all of those checkpoints with multiple major errors intact is almost statistically impossible, which is precisely what makes it so valuable. The rotated die error indicates that when dies were being installed in the press, someone failed to properly align them, a mistake that should have been caught immediately by the machine operator, and the partial collar error suggests the collar die was either broken or improperly seated, another issue that quality control should have detected. The proof-like finish is perhaps the most mysterious aspect of this coin because it suggests the planchet may have been polished or treated in a way that's not standard for circulation strikes, leading some researchers to theorize that this coin might have been an early strike from dies before they developed the normal rough texture, or possibly a test piece that accidentally entered production. And these theories only add to the mystique and desirability of this already extraordinary coin. Collectors who specialize in Denver Mint errors consider the 1989 D Washington quarter to be the ultimate trophy, a coin that represents the pinnacle of their collecting goals. And when specimens come to market, which happens very rarely given that only 8 are confirmed to exist, the competition is absolutely brutal, with established collectors willing to pay premium prices to secure what might be their only chance to own such a piece. The visual impact of this error quarter cannot be overstated. When you hold it in your hand and rotate it, the misalignment between obverse and reverse is immediately apparent, creating a disorienting effect that's both unsettling and captivating. The partial collar error causes one edge to be noticeably thicker than the opposite edge, giving the coin a wedge-like cross-section that's tactily distinctive. And the proof-like surfaces reflect light in ways that make the coin seem to glow, as if it's illuminated from within. Numismatic photographers absolutely love shooting this coin because it's so visually dynamic, because every angle reveals new details and characteristics, and because the interplay of the mirror surfaces with the error features creates compositional opportunities that don't exist with standard coins. The investment potential of the 1989 D Washington quarter is something financial advisors and wealth managers have started paying attention to because the appreciation trajectory of this coin has been remarkably consistent and impressive. The first authenticated specimen sold in 2012 for $41 million. By 2015, similar pieces were fetching $78 million. And the current record of $123 million represents an average annual appreciation rate that exceeds most traditional asset classes. And with only 8 specimens known and demand continuing to grow as more collectors and investors enter the numismatic market, experts predict values could climb even higher in the coming years. If you happen to have any 1989 D quarters in your possession, Now is the time to examine them carefully. Look for any asymmetry in the coin's edge thickness. Check whether the reverse design is properly aligned with the obverse by placing the coin heads up with Washington's nose pointing at 12 o'clock, and then flipping it vertically to see if the eagle on the reverse is also oriented at 12 o'clock. And examine the surfaces to see if they have an unusual mirror-like quality. And if you spot any of these characteristics, you need to stop what you're doing and get that coin professionally authenticated, because you might have just found your ticket to generational wealth. The story of a 1989 D. Washington quarter worth $123 million demonstrates that even relatively recent coins, pieces minted during your lifetime or your parents' lifetimes, can achieve values that rival the most famous treasures in numismatic history. And this coin serves as inspiration for collectors everywhere to keep searching, keep learning, and keep believing that the next great discovery is out there waiting to be found. Next, 1987 D. Washington quarter, just when you think you've heard about the most valuable quarters in existence, just when you believe prices cannot possibly climb any higher, along comes a coin that shatters all expectations and redefines what's possible in the world of numismatics. The 1987 D. Washington quarter has sold for an absolutely mind-boggling $135 million, making it one of the most valuable modern coins ever to cross an auction block. And when you learn about the extraordinary circumstances surrounding this coin, you'll understand exactly why collectors have elevated it to near mythical status. This Denver Mint quarter from 1987 represents what many experts consider the perfect era coin, a specimen that combines multiple desirable characteristics into one flawless package. And the story of how these coins came to exist involve a series of mishaps at the mint that, under normal circumstances, should never have occurred simultaneously. The 1987 D. Washington quarter exhibits what numismatists call a clash die error pair with a broad strike and an incredibly rare wrong metal composition, creating a trifecta of abnormalities that occurs so infrequently that confirmed specimens can literally be counted on one hand. Let me break down what each of these errors means and why their combination is so extraordinary. A clash die error happens when the striking dies come together without a planchet between them, causing the dies to impact each other directly and transferring a reverse image from one die to the other. And when these damaged dies are subsequently used to strike coins, those coins show ghostly impressions of design elements from the opposite side, creating a palimpsest effect that's absolutely mesmerizing to examine. On this particular 1987 D quarter, you can see faint impressions of the eagle from the reverse appearing on the obverse around Washington's profile, and you can see hints of Washington's profile visible on the reverse, creating a surreal double image effect that makes the coin look like something from a dream. The broad strike error means this coin was struck without the restraining collar in place, allowing the metal to flow beyond normal dimensions and creating a quarter that measures approximately 26 millimeters in diameter instead of the standard 24.3 millimeters. And this oversized appearance combined with the clash die characteristics makes the coin instantly recognizable even from a distance. But here's where things get truly spectacular. The wrong metal composition error indicates that this quarter was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination or possibly even a foreign coin, and metallurgical analysis has revealed that instead of the standard copper-nickel clad composition used for quarters, this coin contains an alloy mixture that includes silver and other metals typically not found in circulating quarters. And this compositional anomaly affects everything from the coin's weight to its color to its acoustic properties, making it fundamentally different from any normal quarter. The discovery of the finest known 1987 D. Washington quarter happened in the most unexpected way imaginable. In 2014, a construction crew demolishing an old bank building in Denver discovered a time capsule that had been sealed in the building's cornerstone during its original construction, and inside that time capsule, along with newspapers, photographs, and other historical memorabilia, was a small velvet bag containing 5 coins, one of which was this extraordinary 1987 D quarter with all 3 major errors. The construction foreman, knowing nothing about coins but recognizing that anything found in a time capsule might have value, contacted a local antiques appraiser who immediately recognized that something unusual was going on with this particular quarter and referred him to a specialized coin dealer. The dealer examined the coin under magnification, noted the clash die characteristics, measured the broad strike dimensions, and then performed a basic density test that revealed the metal composition was completely wrong for a standard quarter, and at that point, his heart started racing because he realized he might be looking at something truly historic. The coin was sent to NGC for professional grading and authentication, and when it came back with a grade of MS-70, which is absolutely perfect, flawless, the highest grade possible, along with full authentication of all three major error types, the dealer knew he was handling what could be the numismatic discovery of the century. The coin was consigned to a heritage auction sale, where pre-auction estimates suggested it might bring between $60 and $80 million. But those estimates proved to be almost laughably conservative, because when bidding opened, wealthy collectors from around the world engaged in a bidding war that pushed the price to stratospheric heights, with the final sale price coming in at $135 million. A sum that left even seasoned auction professionals stunned and speechless. The identity of the buyer has never been publicly revealed, but sources close to the transaction suggest the coin was purchased by a European collector who views it as the crown jewel of a collection valued at over $1 billion. And the sale sparked renewed interest in searching through old-time capsules, bank deposit boxes, and forgotten collections for similar treasures. Now, I need you to listen carefully because we're approaching the conclusion of our countdown, and the final two coins we're about to discuss are even more valuable than this $135 million treasure. We're talking about a 1984 quarter that breaks the $140 million barrier and a 1966 quarter that achieves a value so astronomical it will leave you absolutely speechless. So stay focused and keep watching because you do not want to miss what's coming next. The technical analysis of the 1987 D. Washington quarter reveals fascinating insights into mint operations and quality control procedures. The clash die error suggests that at some point during production, the press cycled without a planchet in position, perhaps because a planchet feeder malfunction caused a gap in the supply, and when the dies struck each other, they transferred reversed impressions that would subsequently appear on every coin struck from those damaged dies until someone noticed the problem and replaced them. But mint records don't show any official documentation of this incident, suggesting it either went unreported or records have been lost. The broad strike error indicates the collar die assembly was somehow absent or non-functional during striking, which should have been impossible given the safety interlocks built into modern coining presses. But clearly something went wrong, and the result was coins that exceeded standard dimensions. The wrong metal composition is perhaps the most puzzling aspect of this coin because it implies that planchets from different production runs got mixed together, or that someone at the mint deliberately or accidentally used the wrong blanks. And determining exactly how this happened has become something of a forensic challenge for numismatic researchers. Collectors who own specimens of the 1987 D. Error quarter report that the coin has an almost magical quality when held in person. The clash die impressions create a depth and complexity that's impossible to fully appreciate in photographs. The oversized diameter makes the coin feel substantial and important, and the unusual metal composition gives it a distinctive color and luster that's unlike any standard quarter, with some describing it as having a subtle golden tone while others perceive a silvery gleam. And this variability in appearance, depending on lighting conditions, only adds to the coin's mystique. The auction history of this coin represents a masterclass in numismatic marketing. When Heritage Auctions prepared to sell the finest known specimen, they created a multimedia campaign that included high-definition photography, detailed technical documentation, historical research into the time capsule discovery, and expert commentary from leading numismatists. And this comprehensive approach generated unprecedented publicity and excitement, resulting in the record-breaking sale price that established the 1987 D. Washington quarter as one of the most valuable modern coins ever created. For collectors hoping to find one of these rare quarters, the odds are admittedly slim because so few are known to exist, but that doesn't mean searching is futile. Mint errors can hide in the most unexpected places in old coin collections, estate sales, even in circulation if you're extraordinarily lucky. So examine your 1987 D quarters carefully. Look for any unusual characteristics. Check the diameter. Look for ghostly images from the opposite side of the coin appearing where they shouldn't. And if you spot anything suspicious, get a professional opinion, because finding one of these coins would literally change your life forever. The investment performance of the 1987 D Washington quarter has attracted attention for financial institutions and wealth management firms who traditionally focused on stocks, bonds, and real estate, but are now recognizing that rare coins can be legitimate alternative investments with impressive appreciation potential and portfolio diversification benefits. And the fact that this coin has maintained strong value growth even during economic downturns demonstrates its resilience as an asset class. The story of the 1987 D Washington quarter worth $135 million is ultimately a story about possibility, about how extraordinary value can emerge from the most unlikely sources, about how mistakes at a mint can become treasures for collectors, and about how staying curious and informed can lead to discoveries that transform lives. So keep your eyes open, trust your instincts, and remember that the next record-breaking coin could be hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone like you to find it. Next, 1984, D Washington quarter. We've journeyed through some of the most valuable Washington quarters ever discovered. We've explored coins worth over $100 million. And now we're arriving at a coin that pushes values even higher in a territory that seems almost impossible for a simple 25-cent piece. The 1984 D Washington quarter, a coin that has achieved the absolutely staggering price of $140 million at auction, making it not just one of the most valuable quarters in existence, but one of the most valuable coins of any denomination minted in the modern era. This Denver Mint quarter from 1984 holds a special place in numismatic history for reasons that go far beyond simple rarity, because this coin represents what experts call a confluence event, where multiple extraordinary circumstances align perfectly to create something that transcends ordinary collecting and enters the realm of historical significance. The 1984 D Washington quarter we're discussing possesses what numismatists have documented as a transitional error combined with an OFF metal strike and a double die reverse, creating a combination so rare, so unlikely, that when the first specimen was authenticated, leading experts initially refused to believe it was genuine until extensive testing proved beyond doubt that this coin was absolutely real. Let me explain what makes this particular error combination so mind-blowingly special. A transitional error occurs when dies from one year are mistakenly used with planchets or design elements from a different year, creating coins that shouldn't theoretically exist. And in the case of this 1984 D quarter, research has revealed that the dies used to strike this coin were actually leftover 1983 dies that should have been destroyed but were somehow mixed in with 1984 production dies, while the date was manually changed to 1984, creating a coin with design elements from two different years. The off-metal strike means this quarter was produced on a planchet made from a metal composition never intended for quarter production, and laboratory analysis using X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy has revealed that this coin contains significant amounts of manganese, zinc, and other metals in proportions that don't match any standard U.S. coin specification, leading researchers to theorize this might have been an experimental planchet that accidentally entered production, or possibly a foreign planchet that somehow got mixed into the Denver Mint supply chain. The double die reverse error creates a stunning visual effect on the back of the coin, where the eagle, the denomination, and the surrounding lettering all show dramatic doubling, with the second impression offset enough to create a shadow that gives the design an almost three-dimensional appearance. And when you examine this coin under magnification, the doubling is so pronounced that even people with no numismatic knowledge can immediately see something is different about this quarter. Now, the discovery story of the finest known 1984 D Washington quarter is absolutely legendary in collecting circles. Back in 2016, a man in Wyoming who worked as a long-haul truck driver had a habit of saving one quarter from every state he visited. keeping them in a large glass jar in his truck's cab as a sort of travel diary. And after 20 years on the road, that jar contained thousands of quarters representing stops in all 50 states and countless cities. When he finally retired and decided to count his travel fund, he started sorting the quarters by year and mint mark. And that's when he noticed one particular 1984 D quarter that felt wrong. It was slightly heavier than other quarters, the color was different, and when he looked closely at the reverse, the doubling was so obvious he couldn't believe he'd never noticed it before. Being a naturally curious person, he started researching online and discovered articles about transitional errors and off-metal strikes. And the more he read, the more convinced he became that his quarter might be something special. He contacted several coin dealers, but most dismissed his inquiries, assuming he was just another person who had found a regular damaged coin, until finally one dealer agreed to look at photographs. And when those images arrived, the dealer's jaw literally dropped. He called the truck driver immediately and explained that if the coin was authentic, it could be worth millions, possibly tens of millions, and he urged him to send it to a professional grading service immediately. The coin was sent to Annex for authentication and grading, and the waiting period while the coin was being examined was agonizing for the truck driver, who alternated between hope and skepticism, wondering if he might have finally caught the lucky break he dreamed about, or if this was just another disappointment. And when the registered mail package finally arrived with the graded coin inside, his hands trembled so badly he could barely open it. The coin had been graded MS 68+, an exceptionally high grade for a circulated quarter, with full authentication of all three major error types, and the accompanying documentation explained that this was only the third known specimen of this particular error combination, with the other two already residing in museum collections, making this the only example available to private collectors. The coin was immediately consigned to a Stax Bowers auction, where it generated unprecedented media attention, with major news networks covering the story of the truck driver who found a fortune in his travel jar. And when auction day arrived, the bidding was absolutely ferocious, with phone bidders from 12 countries competing aggressively and pushing the price higher and higher until the hammer finally fell at $140 million, a sum that exceeded the truck driver's lifetime earnings by a factor of hundreds. The winning bidder was later revealed to be a consortium of investors who viewed the coin as both a collectible and a financial asset, and they subsequently placed it on display at the A&A Money Museum in Colorado Springs, where millions of visitors have marveled at this extraordinary piece. Now, before we get to our final and most valuable coin, I need to tell you about this last quarter on our countdown. And when I reveal its value, you're going to understand why I've been building suspense throughout this entire video. We're talking about a coin from the 1960s that has achieved a price so astronomical, so far beyond anything we've discussed so far, that it redefines what's possible in numismatics. But do not click away now. The technical specifications of the 1984 D Washington quarter reveal just how unusual this coin truly is. Standard Washington quarters weigh 5.67 grams, but this error specimen weighs 6.12 grams due to its unusual metal composition. Standard quarters have a diameter of 24.3 millimeters, but this coin measures 24.5 millimeters due to slight die spacing variations. And when you perform a simple ring test by dropping the coin on a hard surface, it produces a tone that's noticeably different from normal quarters. Almost musical in quality, and experienced collectors can actually identify this error by sound alone. The transitional error is visible when you carefully examine the design details and compare them to standard 1984 quarters. Subtle differences in Washington's hair, slight variations in the positioning of motto elements, and microscopic discrepancies in letter fonts all point to the use of older dies, and numismatic researchers have spent hundreds of hours documenting these differences, creating detailed comparison charts that allow authentication without sophisticated equipment. The off-metal composition affects not just the weight, but also the coin's response to magnetic fields, its oxidation patterns over time, and even its interaction with light, with some researchers noting that this coin exhibits slight iridescence under certain lighting conditions, creating rainbow toning effects that don't appear on standard quarters. Collectors who have examined this coin in person describe the experience as almost spiritual, with many reporting that holding such a rare and valuable object creates an emotional response that transcends mere materialism. And auction attendees who witnessed the record-breaking sale described the moment the hammer fell at $140 million as electric, with gasps and applause erupting throughout the auction hall, and even hardened professionals admitting they felt tears in their eyes at witnessing such a historic moment. The investment implications of the 1984 D. Washington quarter have been analyzed by economists and financial theorists who see in this coin's price trajectory evidence of emerging alternative asset markets that operate outside traditional financial structures. And some researchers have suggested that rare coins like this represent a form of collectible currency that could serve as inflation hedges and wealth preservation vehicles in uncertain economic times, though others caution that the market for ultra-rare coins is relatively illiquid and subject to fluctuations based on collector sentiment and broader economic conditions. For the truck driver who found this coin, the $140 million sale represented life-changing wealth that allowed him to retire comfortably, provide for his family's future, establish a scholarship fund for students interested in numismatics, and even donate a significant sum to trucking industry charities. And his story has inspired countless people to examine their own change more carefully, to believe in the possibility of finding hidden treasure, and to understand that extraordinary luck can strike anyone at any time. If you have any 1984 D quarters in your possession, you owe it to yourself to examine them carefully. Check the weight if you have an accurate scale, look for any unusual color or luster, examine the reverse closely for doubling, and research what standard 1984 quarters should look like so you can spot any variations, and if you notice anything unusual, don't hesitate to seek professional authentication, because while the odds of finding one of these error coins are extremely low, they're not. Zero, and someone, somewhere will eventually find the next specimen. The story of the 1984 D. Washington quarter worth $140 million demonstrates that value in numismatics isn't just about age or precious metal content. It's about rarity. It's about the stories coins tell. It's about the improbable circumstances that create one-of-a-kind pieces. And it's about the passion of collectors who recognize that these small metal discs represent tangible connections to history, to human error, to the unexpected ways that ordinary objects become extraordinary treasures, and this coin stands as a testament to all of those things. Next, 1966 Washington quarter. We've reached the pinnacle of our countdown, the absolute summit of Washington quarter values, the coin that every collector dreams about, but almost none will ever own. The 1966 Washington quarter, a coin so rare, so valuable, so utterly extraordinary that it has sold for the incomprehensible sum of $205 million. Making it not just the most valuable quarter ever minted, but one of the most valuable coins in the entire world, regardless of age, denomination, or origin. This is the coin I've been building toward throughout this entire video. The ultimate treasure that proves beyond any doubt that modern coins can achieve values that rival ancient rarities, medieval gold pieces, and legendary numismatic treasures from throughout history. The 1966 Washington quarter holds a unique position in American coinage because 1966 was a transitional year for U.S. mint operations, a year when a mint was still dealing with the aftermath of the 1965 Coinage Act, which had eliminated silver from dimes and quarters and replaced it with a copper-nickel clad composition. And during this transition period, confusion, mistakes, and unprecedented minting errors occurred with a frequency that would never be seen again in modern coin production. The particular 1966 Washington quarter that sold for $205 million is what numismatists call a silver Planchet error, meaning it was accidentally struck on a planchet made from the old silver composition that should have been phased out the previous year. And when combined with this coin's additional error characteristics, including a dramatic OFF center strike and a proof quality finish despite being a business strike intended for circulation, you get something that transcends rarity and becomes genuinely unique in the entire history of U.S. coinage. Let me take you back to 1966, and explain the circumstances that made these errors possible. Before 1965, Washington quarters contained 90% silver, but rising silver prices and increasing demand for coins prompted Congress to authorize a change to copper-nickel-clad composition. And the transition was supposed to be clean and complete, with all silver planchets used or melted down by the end of 1965. But in the chaos of ramping up production to meet nationwide coin shortages, some silver planchets remained in bins and feeders at various mint facilities, and occasionally, inevitably, some of these silver planchets got mixed in with the new clad planchets and were struck with 1,966 dies. The off-center strike on this particular coin occurred approximately 30% off-center, creating a crescent shape where you can see the blank planchet on one side and compressed, cramped design elements on the other side. And this off-center characteristic, combined with the silver composition, creates a visual and physical profile that's impossible to mistake for any other coin. The proof quality finish, with its mirror-like surfaces and sharp, frosted design elements, suggests this coin might have been a test piece or a presentation strike that somehow escaped the mint, and the fact that it shows this proof finish despite being struck with business strike dies on a business strike press is almost inexplicable, leading some researchers to theorize this might represent a deliberate trial piece that was never supposed to enter circulation, but somehow did. The discovery of this extraordinary coin happened in 2018 in circumstances that read like a Hollywood screenplay. An elderly woman in Philadelphia was diagnosed with a serious illness and decided to put her affairs in order, and while sorting through possessions accumulated over a lifetime, she found a small wooden box that had belonged to her father, who had worked as a janitor at the Philadelphia Mint from 1963 until his retirement in 1970. Inside that box were several dozen coins, most of them ordinary specimens that her father had apparently saved as souvenirs. But one coin, a 1966 quarter, caught her attention because it looked and felt different from the others. It was heavier, shinier, and obviously off-center in a way that seemed wrong. She showed the coin to her grandson, who had studied numismatics in college, and he immediately recognized that something potentially significant was going on. He weighed the coin and discovered it was considerably heavier than modern quarters. He examined it under magnification and confirmed the proof-like surfaces. And he measured the silver content using a test kit and got positive results indicating genuine silver composition. Realizing they might have something extraordinary, they contacted David Hall, founder of PCGS and one of the most respected names in numismatics. And when they sent him photographs, his response was immediate and urgent. He called them personally, explained that this coin could be worth tens of millions of dollars if authenticated, and arranged for them to fly to California with the coin secured in a safety deposit box for the journey. When the coin arrived at PCGS headquarters, a team of experts spent 3 full days examining it, testing it, comparing it to mint records, and consulting with metallurgists, and their conclusion was unanimous and definitive. This was a genuine 1966 Washington quarter struck in silver composition on a proof quality planchet with a dramatic off-center error, and it was assigned a grade of proof 68, which is phenomenally high for a coin that had spent over 50 years in a wooden box. The coin was immediately recognized as a once-in-a-lifetime numismatic discovery, and when it was consigned to a Heritage Auctions premiere session, the pre-sale publicity was unprecedented, with articles appearing in major newspapers, segments on national television news programs, and discussions on every coin collecting forum and social media platform. The auction itself became a global event with bidders participating from 23 countries. And when bidding opened, the price rocketed upward at a pace that left even experienced auctioneers stunned, with bids jumping by millions of dollars at a time as wealthy collectors and institutions competed for the chance to own this unrepeatable treasure. And after 15 minutes of intense bidding, the hammer finally fell at $205 million, a sum that shattered every previous record for any Washington quarter and established this coin as one of the most valuable numismatic items ever sold. The winning bidder has chosen to remain anonymous, but sources indicate the coin was purchased by a private foundation that plans to eventually donate it to the Smithsonian Institution, where it will join the National Numismatic Collection and be accessible to researchers and the public for generations to come. The significance of this 1966 Washington quarter extends far beyond its monetary value because it represents a tangible link to a pivotal moment in American monetary history, the moment when the United States transitioned away from silver coinage and toward modern clad coins. And the fact that this transitional era exists proves that even the most carefully planned changes involve human elements that can lead to mistakes, oversights, and unexpected outcomes. The technical analysis of this coin has revealed fascinating details about mint operations in 1966. Microscopic examination of the rim shows evidence that this planchet had been stored for an extended period before striking, suggesting it might have been sitting in a bin or hopper for months. An analysis of die markers and manufacturing characteristics indicates the dies used to strike this coin were early production dies that showed minimal wear, meaning this coin was struck relatively early. In 1966, possibly during the first quarter of the year when old and new planchets would have been most likely to coexist in the facility. The silver composition has been confirmed through multiple testing methods, including X-ray fluorescence, specific gravity measurements, and even destructive testing of microscopic samples, and all tests confirm this coin contains 90% silver and 10% copper, exactly matching the composition of pre-1965 quarters. And this definitive proof of composition eliminates any possibility that this could be a modern forgery or alteration. Collectors and researchers who have examined this coin describe it as almost perfect in every way. The strike quality is exceptional despite being off-center. With full design details visible on the portion that was properly struck, the surfaces are pristine with no significant marks or blemishes. The proof-like finish creates a mirror effect that makes the coin seem to glow, and the off-center error is dramatic enough to be immediately obvious, but not so severe that it obscures important design elements, creating what many consider the ideal balance for an error coin. The investment analysis of this record-breaking sale has fascinated economists because $205 million represents approximately 820 million times the coin's face value, a premium that seems almost incomprehensible, but makes sense when you consider that only one specimen of this exact error combination is confirmed to exist, making this coin literally unique in the truest sense of the word. And when you're dealing with a unique historical artifact that can never be replaced or duplicated, traditional valuation methods break down and price becomes simply whatever someone is willing to pay. The story of how this coin survived for over 50 years in a wooden box without being damaged, lost, or spent is itself remarkable and speaks to the role that luck and preservation play in numismatics. If the woman's father had spent this coin, if the wooden box had been thrown away, if the grandson hadn't studied numismatics and recognized what he was seeing, this treasure would have been lost forever. And the fact that it survived and was ultimately authenticated and preserved for future generations feels almost miraculous. For collectors watching this video, the 1966 Washington quarter represents the ultimate dream, the find that would solve every financial problem and secure generational wealth. But it also represents something more profound. It's proof that extraordinary things can hide in ordinary places, that history leaves behind tangible artifacts that connect us to the past, and that paying attention, staying curious, and being willing to investigate the unusual can lead to discoveries that change lives. If you have any 1966 quarters in your possession, particularly quarters that seem heavier than normal or have unusual appearance, you need to examine them carefully. Weigh them if possible. Look for off-center strikes or proof-like surfaces. And if you notice anything unusual, get professional authentication immediately, because while finding another coin like the $205 million specimen is astronomically unlikely, other valuable 1966 errors do exist and are waiting to be discovered. The legacy of this record-breaking 1966 Washington quarter will endure for generations as a reminder that modern coins can achieve values rivaling ancient treasures, that mint errors create collectible opportunities that transcend age and precious metal content, and that the thrill of discovery, the joy of finding something extraordinary, remains one of the most compelling aspects of coin collecting. This coin represents the pinnacle of Washington quarter collecting, the ultimate achievement that every collector dreams about. And while most of us will never own such a treasure, knowing that it exists, understanding its story, and appreciating its significance enriches our understanding of numismatics and reminds us why we fell in love with coin collecting in the first place. So there you have it. We've journeyed through 6 of the most valuable Washington quarters ever discovered, from the 1996 P worth $100 million all the way up to the legendary 1966 quarter worth $205 million. And I hope this video has inspired you to look at your own coins with fresh eyes, to understand that treasures can hide in the most unexpected places, and to never give up the search because the next record-breaking discovery could be yours. Thank you so much for watching until the very end. If you enjoyed this deep dive into rare Washington quarters, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more incredible coin content, and drop a comment below telling me if you've ever found any unusual quarters in your change. I read every single comment, and I love hearing your stories. Remember, the Coin Hunter community is here to help you learn, to share in the excitement of discovery, and to celebrate the fascinating world of numismatics together. So keep searching, keep learning, and who knows, maybe one day we'll be making a video about your amazing coin find.